Now, though, we'll do a brief intro. Brief intro. We'll talk a little bit about windsurf, and then from there, we'll just yeah, we'll share the screen and we'll try to build something really quick. How's that sound? So, a little bit about myself. I'm a software engineer by trade, a couple time technical co-founder. Me and Michael got together like about 7 months ago now and started building a nonprofit ed tech company, and that's kind of what has motivated us to learn a lot of these AI tools or take our knowledge of it and expand that and help people. We've helped a few people, go from 0 to 100, learning how to code with AI tools and things like that. Today, what I'm going to talk about is windsurf. We're going to use Gemini and windsurf to try to vibe code a video game. I'm going in a little blind. This is last week. That's a great question. I will try to answer that question in a second. Just this last week, I'd never really used windsurf. I've been on Cursor for maybe 5 months now for through work. So I spun it up. I built a quick video game in like 20 minutes. So it's pretty easy to get going. Let me share my screen, and I think I can try to answer that question. Although I think there's not a great answer, if I'm being honest. Um, so like I said, I went in kind of blind to windsurf. It was a little clunky to get going, but it seems like it's basically the same thing. And I think I've even tried to look up like what they have to say, what Cursor has to say. I've asked ChatGPT and Google for a comparison, and why use one over the other, I think is preference. Windsurf seems to be a little cheaper. They say they more are like geared towards using local models if you want, and even like maybe corporate coding. But I think Cursor can do all of the same things. You can use local models, you can put in your own API keys. So I think that they really are just like one-to-one exact competitors. And then even if I like, let me start this here and I can show. So I'm just going to start a new project and we'll call it like video game two. And you can see it's basically the exact same thing. Even like it's a VS Code fork, exactly like Cursor. Even the controls, it's like if you haven't used Cursor, it's just a VS Code text editor with a couple built-in things that you can control L to open up this. They call it write mode. In Cursor, it's like ask or yeah, even here they have write and chat. And Cursor, it's like ask versus agent mode. They do the exact same things. You can edit just like you can in Cursor. So I think it's really preference. And maybe if you're looking to save, I think it's $5 cheaper a month for Windsurf right now. And then now maybe they have the benefit of the OpenAI acquisition that might put them, depending on who you are, that may put you over the edge thinking that's a good thing, or maybe I think that's a bad thing. So that's the only thing I really got about which one is better than the other. I'm going to create a new folder and call it prompts here. And then in that, we'll start with just a one start prompt text. I'm going to try to use dictate. I haven't actually been doing that. I'm trying to get more used to speaking out loud. I'm used to like typing and thinking that way, but I'll try to use dictate and see how well it goes. I might type some things to update it though. Generate me a video game similar to Breakout, period. I want a rectangle towards the bottom of the screen the user can control with the left and the right buttons, and a ball that bounces around the screen, falling towards the ground unless it hits either the user controlled rectangle or the top, left, and right walls of the screen, period. If the ball falls to the very bottom of the screen, the game is over and we alert the user that they have lost, period. Make this a web app using a modern stack, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, period. All right. We can actually read it. I don't know if I can do yeah, I don't know if there's word wrap. I'm not going to figure that out now. So I'm just going to take that and then go over to write mode. We're in Gemini 2.5 Pro. Let's just paste it. See how well it does. As we let that generate, see the chat's open. Is there more questions in the chat? I see. I just do that. I don't know. There's not a good reason, Michael. I do that for one thing, I can track them. Like I'll use Git and be able to version them, but also it's easy for me, it's easier to see. This chat window over here is like pretty small and I don't want to accidentally hit enter or something and it get going because I've done that in cursor and it'll start making all kinds of changes. So it's good to just like get the prompt I want and then paste it. And then like I can just both version it, but I can like save them as one, two, three as I do that, and then like possibly redo the whole process if I want. Okay, let's see. It's using Python. I don't think I want that. We'll see how far it gets, but I think I'm probably going to end up walking that back. Let's see. All right. Okay, maybe it's doing okay. Ball could be a little faster. Let's see if it actually fails. Nice. All right. Let me just do the second prompt and then I can answer that next question. So I'm gonna leave this prompt and I'm gonna add a second one to do addition. Really, you probably could have added the like the blocks if you've ever played Breakout, the blocks in that one prompt, but I wanted to just see if it did good. Let's see. Now add additional blocks grouped towards the top of the screen in the shape of a triangle. When the ball hits one of these blocks, they disappear. When all blocks have disappeared, the game is over and we let the user know they have won, period. If there's anything else I should add to that, we'll just see how it does. Accept all. Well, that goes thinking from an engineering mindset. Yeah, I think that's a po yes, I think that's definitely a possibility. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. That maybe is a good thing. If everyone can be a CTO, that's a good thing. I think charging 20,000 for a CTO agent, I don't know. I don't think that the economics work. Like I think you could make one charge that much and get a CTO level, but I think like at that point you're shifting a ton of industries around where like everyone, like basically any company that has 20K a month can then be a software company. And I think there's still going to be tons of room for builders there. So I think if it's like when these things first came out, people said, well, human beings are irrelevant. These things can do anything. And I think when you reach that point where it's not a marketing hype. Like it's not like we call it a CTO and you still need a whole team to get it right. When you reach the point where you can just ask it a thing and it does anything, you've disrupted the economy entirely. And at that point, like I don't know, maybe we reach space communism or something. I don't know. But I think like everyone losing their job, like people are going to go out and they're going to do stuff anyway. And people who are builders are going to build. Maybe more people will be able to build. That just means we'll get more things built. At least that's what I'm going with. Um, yeah, for best practices, like this is pretty simple. Yesterday, we'll post a video later. I did a Donkey Kong, and my prompt needed to be a little bit more complex because breakout's really simple. Like if you do a video game course, it's going to be like game number two that you build. So it's really simple. But like if you do something more complex, you're going to want to have like a list of I need this feature, I need that feature, I need to do this because if you don't, it's going to make assumptions and maybe it gets it right, and then you run that same prompt again and it does it totally different. So best practices are definitely like type out as much as you like be as specific as you possibly can in your prompt, especially in regards to like player behavior, but also enemies. And then even when I generated that game yesterday, I didn't say anything about the game over. And so it was like it was constantly it would say game over whether you won or lost. And then even when I restarted a new game, the player was not removed back to the start. So it was like I have to refresh to get back. So you have to be very specific about like player behavior. Yeah, I mean, I think because this is a simple project, and like if I was going to do a larger project, maybe I would ask it to like I would start specking out what I wanted to build. Let me accept here and see where we're at. Oh, I might have to run it. Should still be running. I closed out of it though. Open preview. Let's see. Okay, now it's a little better. Not that good at it, so I don't want to be here all day. I think that appears to work though. Let's just make sure. Okay, nice. All right, so that looks good. Maybe I can answer this. Yeah, so to wrap that question up, basically, just because it's something simple, if you were going to make a bigger game, then I would start with like maybe specking out what the architecture would be with it, and then like then you can do like you can almost generate the steps in that way instead of like jumping in. Where here I know it's breakout, I know there's like a million implementations of breakout online, and I know that it's probably going to be like if anything it can build, it's like the hello world of game making, or one step above a hello world of game making. Windsurf over Cursor kind of answered that for personal favorites. I've been using Cursor for a while now, so I know all of its flaws, and I'm like frustrated every day working with Cursor. So like Windsurf is nicer right now just because of that. But I'm sure if I used it as much, I'd probably have similar frustrations with its functionality. hmm Yeah, let me do I think that I got another prompt here to do, and then I'll answer that next question. So I think we'll try to do two things at once here. Now, can you make it where as more of the rectangles disappear off the screen, the speed of the ball increases? Period. Let's also add two more levels, one where the blocks make a ball and another where they make an X. Yeah, for going from vibe coding to thrive coding, I think it's new. Not too many people have actually done that outside of having an MVP, but I think the process is pretty, like, I think it's probably what you'd expect. Once you get something like this, like get it out in the world and get people who either validate it, people saying that they'd use it or starting to use it if it's free, or getting like your first paying customers. And then at that point, you can use vibe coding in a more limited capacity where like you start looking at each file. Like you kind of have to start learning the code base at that point though, but still Cursor, Windsurf, they before they had these agent modes, at least with Cursor, it was really just like a really awesome autocomplete and it is good at that for editing code. So you can get really productive even if you know limited about code. But you can also, as you have to start learning the code base, but it's really helpful at that. You can have it explain and have it make smaller additions because you don't like eventually once you have an MVP, you don't want it changing the whole MVP every time you ask it a question. So you've got to lower the scope towards features, but it's still really good at that. And then yeah, if you're a person who doesn't want to code, though, at that point you are probably going to need to start bringing on someone who's interested in learning to code. So that is a trade-off. It's good now at getting you something out the door that maybe get you funding or get you revenue, but if you hate coding, like you can only vibe code so much, at least for now. With frustrations with Cursor, I think my biggest one is that it like especially with the latest release with the latest Claude, it'll make sweeping changes and it almost does too much guesswork for me even in like not the agent mode, but even as I'm type like I go to type something and it wants to make suggestions where it will like change big aspects of code. It makes assumptions about what I'm doing that are are like totally wrong, and that really gets on my nerves. And then there's also the like this isn't something I can say windsurf does better, but there's like the loop, the bug loop where you show it a bug like and it doesn't know the answer, so it like hallucinates an answer. And then you like test it out because you're not like I don't think as much as I used to. I test it out, it doesn't work, I get mad, and then I like paste the error back into cursor and I say, hey, this did not work. Can you give me the reasons why you thought this worked and something that might actually work? And it'll do like maybe it'll answer that. Same thing happens, you tell it the same thing again, and then it goes back to the first one. And that's a big, big frustration that I think most engineers I've heard complain about. Hmm. I'm also new with dictation. I even with these prompts, I prefer to type them because I'm like it's almost like with code where I'm thinking through as I type, where if I just shout out, I'm gonna like here again, this is pretty simple, but like I'm gonna be shouting out so much that I almost need to go through and do like an edit of the prompt. So I'm with you in terms of dictation. I think that's something we're all just gonna have to get used to if we want to go that route. I don't think you have to do dictation though. You could still type if that's what you prefer. It may just end up being easier in the long run and better on definitely better on your wrists. And if you don't have to hunch over the keyboard, it's a lot better on the posture. So there's one benefit. Okay. I like how it even says that was a comprehensive update. Let's see what it did. I don't know if I'm gonna have to go through them. Yeah, let's see. It has at least this, so I think it's gonna have multiple levels now, but there we go. Okay. All right. That's pretty cool. I wonder if there's a way. I'm gonna leave that for now. Maybe what we could do is ask, is there anything that anyone else would want to try to add? Like maybe I could add like steps for me. I would think like, can I add a score? Can I add it? But is there any like anyone who's played Breakout or similar games, anything they would think would be interesting to try to see if it can add? Confetti. I like that. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, let's see if we can do both of those in another prompt here. Okay. When the user wins at a level, show confetti and wait a couple of seconds before fading into the next level, period. Also add power-up blocks, multiple balls after the second level, and kill blocks that force a game over, period. All right, let's see. For dictation, I'm on a Mac, so I'm just using Apple's built-in dictation. And then Deep also asked, since Cursor is just a fork of VS Code and VS Code is free, I think every company should have their own VS Code fork for their employees. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think if I was a big company, I would be hesitant to use VS Code at all at this point, since I think Microsoft has a big incentive to like steal your code and train models on it. So I would be hesitant at all. I think I don't know if forking it is a great idea. Maybe adding plugins if you wanted to do that. But I do think like we're going to converge on a time where it makes sense if companies are going to write code to either not like everything's open source and not care anymore, or get like super proprietary even with their dev environments. Yeah, yeah. Michael said there's companies already doing this. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think it's that hard to actually like if you can fork VS Code, that's probably the hardest part is getting it, like maybe doing things with context to make, you don't if you're not competing with Cursor or Windsurf, then you don't have to be as good. You just have to be good enough to generate code. There's like tons of devs who were doing that before these tools exist and even doing it now where they use like Vim and they build Vim plugins like themselves that just like as you write code, send off that as the context and get back, to autocomplete. That's pretty easy to do. All right, let's see. This one I'm just accepting it without testing. Let's see how well it does. Steady. Okay. Did not add multiple balls yet. Let's see. No, all right. It did add the kill block. It just did not add multiple kaboom. You hit a kill break. Okay. All right. I wonder if maybe just to keep going. I don't know that we could add sound. Maybe I could try to see what it does if I ask it to add like arcade music and let's just see what it does. Now, can you add changing colors to the background, mimicking the flashing lights of an arcade and arcade style music, period? I think I would to the not the game, but the page background, not the game itself. And let's see what it does there. Yeah, Deep said fun times that we were seeing someone develop a game in like 30 minutes. This was definitely not possible. Yeah, I was thinking that right before this call because I did like a Donkey Kong style game in like 20 minutes yesterday. And when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, like I learned to code by doing video games and something like that Breakout would have taken me days. I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't know how to code really, but it would have taken me like a week to get that working. Even a few years ago, like when I learned Python, like maybe 5 years ago, I did a bunch of games, including like Breakout that we see here. And that was still like a 5, 6 hour endeavor learning how to do breakouts. So like we had one in 3 minutes. Now we're just iterating on the what we have. So yeah, it is really awesome to see. That's why I don't fear. I know people are afraid like, oh, what if they just like everyone just can pay a CTO now? I don't know. I think that there'll be so many companies, and there's such a push for open source. I've always been a big open source advocate. There's such a push for open source that I don't think there's ever going to be a monopoly on code like that. Um, so I don't fear it. I think that like I kind of welcome the disruption. It seems like a lot of big companies came to take over tech, and until pretty recently, there's been another boom with this AI, and I think I'm totally in favor of seeing more and more people leave those big companies and be empowered for like two or three of them to get together and start companies that can actually compete with the big companies. All right, let's see where we're at now. Okay. No music, but that's okay. I lost. Maybe that's interesting. I can add like another more balls to the thing. And then I don't know if maybe yeah, let's see if it said anything about music. hmm Yeah, I didn't see anything. Maybe that's just me not knowing how to. Maybe I could try to do this in Firefox and see if I have better luck. It just doesn't have music. Okay. I'm gonna do one more, unless anyone has any other additions here, then maybe we could just make it a retrospective and questions after this last one. No, I haven't. So DPass, any favorite MCPs that you use a lot? I actually haven't used that much. I've been kind of out of the Anthropic ecosystem for a while. I'm mostly on ChatGPT, and then like I use Anthropic. I use Claude for like in Cursor, but really I have not done a lot with MCPs yet. But welcome to any yeah, any that you think are worth trying. Okay. Can you now add multiple balls? So if the player loses one, they have another shot until they run out of balls. Let's start with three and add another with each level they complete. And Michael, I know that you talk about MCPs a lot, so maybe if there's any you yeah, nice. Yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah. Everyone is shipping. Deep says everyone is shipping so fast. Yes, they definitely are. It's funny seeing them compete and then even seeing Google have to compete for the first time and since I was like really young at least. That's cool, Notion. Yeah, I use Notion a lot. Let's see. But then it still gave me a game over. 7. This should be the last one. Currently, even when the player has multiple lives, the ball hitting the bottom of the screen causes a total game over. Let's update this so their number of lives decreases and the level restarts, period. Only once the number of lives is equal to 0 do they lose the game, period. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of the like Michael called out a lot of the no code tools, especially the ones that have like come out since the AI, like a lot of them are have Slack like by default, they have a ton of Slack integrations that make it really, really easy. Like the hardest part is getting the API key, especially for people who don't know, who haven't done that before, because like Slack's API dashboard is not that like intuitive. So that the hardest part is doing that. Within that, you can if you have an API key within like 60 seconds, you can have some really awesome Slack integrations. Yep, thanks. Thanks, Steve. Yep, thank you, Damon. All right, let's try this thing here. All right, I guess I should have let it lose. Okay, yeah, nice. Nice, that worked. There was a little bug there. I don't know if you saw that, but it dropped a life and then the ball was right next, so it dropped again, and so it dropped two lives. So I would have it like next thing would be start the ball back, towards the center of the screen or something like that. But I think that's good. I mean, it's like you said, for less than 30 minutes, that was really good, really awesome. So I'll leave it here. I'll leave the screen shared in case anyone has any questions about that. But otherwise, maybe we could, if there's any questions about this or any thoughts, anything like that from anyone, feel free to say them out loud, drop them in the chat. Yeah.
One question on the video game side is, have you seen anything that helps with the design of the video game? Because something like Breakout is 2D and pretty simple. When you start designing other games, like a Donkey Kong-like game, there's a question of visuals, and sometimes you're now bringing in different assets or different things. So from personal experience, have you seen anything, or even just different libraries to get started? So not just stuck in like 2D lines.
Yeah, for 3D, I know there's like AI CADs now. I know a few startups that are working on them, and then I think like AutoCAD itself has something is like starting to add those features themselves. So there's a lot of that for the 3D space. I feel like me personally, I haven't even seen I've seen more in the 3D space than in 2D. So I know like there's been I mean, I think maybe because there's image generation, people just like kind of assume that's solved. But I've tried it myself, like generating sprite sheets, and it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad at like maybe there's been later updates, so I would have to try like today to say, but just in the last month or so, you say it and it has trouble. Sprite sheets are so like you get 20 characters with like one subtle movement between them, and it's like I don't know, it just doesn't get that subtlety that these need to be the same character. So it'll be like different characters or non-subtle movements that could be jarring if you actually tried to animate them. So I think the 2D space is not as solved as 3D. Maybe can Kits, if you can go into a little more detail about what you mean there, to create by sharing a demo video, or what do you mean by that? And also feel free if you can't speak, then you could also just in the chat maybe give a little bit. Yep. Maybe like if I'm gonna guess at what you mean, I feel like maybe do you mean like you posting a game, like a demo video of a game and then letting the model try to recreate that game. I have not personally tried that. I imagine, depending on the complexity of the game, if you tried something like obviously, I think if you tried Breakout and you put it here, because Gemini does allow for video. I don't know that windsurf does because I haven't tested that, but Gemini itself does allow for video. I imagine it would do really a good job at creating a Tetris or a Breakout. If you put like I don't know what the Oblivion remake or something in there, I think it would probably not do a great job at that, but it may start and it may surprise you at how well it gets. I know people like there was a whole company that what they did was like Minecraft, or they didn't call it Minecraft, but it basically would just generate like a Minecraft game based on a prompt. So I think the models are there. They can do 3D, so it may surprise you. Yeah, yeah. Michael said most models are image only. Yeah, and you could probably take like with I met a person who did music and I always struggled to like prompt and get the right music. And what she said was what she does is when generating music, she'll go to the Wikipedia because Wikipedia has a good description of like an artist's sound that is written by people who are like music buffs. So you could almost go to Wikipedia, copy the gameplay mechanics that most Wikipedia articles have, and then add screenshots, and you'd probably get a pretty good like start to whatever the game you wanted to make is. All right. If there's no more questions, then I think we're good to wrap here, maybe a little early. So any last minute questions, I'll leave it open for like the next minute. But other than that, I think we're good to jump, everyone.